Name's Erica Monroe. I'm 29 now, but this all started back when I was 17 and still under the delusion that family was something permanent, not transactional. We lived in a nowhere town in northern Ohio, the kind with one Walmart, 3 gas stations, and a church on every block like it was some kind of spiritual arms race. The type of place where if you screamed, the whole neighborhood would hear and assume it was just the TV. My mom met Raymond when I was 15. He was one of those retired cops who never really retired. Big guy. Deep voice. One of those dudes who speaks slowly so you know he's used to people shutting up when he talks. He wore his old department badge around like a security blanket, always just helping out on local neighborhood watch boards and charity golf tournaments, where he'd brag about keeping the community clean. He even carried a laminated news clipping in his wallet about the time he tackled a purse snatcher in a Kroger parking lot. I wish I were kidding. Raymond moved in the year I turned 16. My mom was glowing like she'd been chosen by God. After my dad bailed when I was 8, I think she thought Raymond was some kind of divine upgrade. I didn't like him. That feeling grew teeth when he started knocking on my bedroom door after midnight. It started small. Just checking you locked your window, he'd say. Or, your mom's asleep, but I wanted to say goodnight. His voice was always soft, but the kind of soft that made your skin crawl, like when a snake slithers through dry grass. I started sleeping in hoodies and double-latching my door. But guess what? Raymond was a retired cop. He had picks, tools, keys he wasn't supposed to have. Eventually, I'd wake up and he'd be standing over me. Once, he touched my ankle. Just once. Enough to make me sit bolt upright like I'd been tasered. I told my mom. I waited until she wasn't distracted by her latest Pinterest recipe or church committee drama. I made her sit down. I looked her in the eye and told her exactly what had been happening. She didn't believe me. Actually, scratch that, she refused to believe me. Raymond? He's never even raised his voice at me, she said, like that made him biologically incapable of being a creep. You've always been dramatic, Erica. This is something else. Are you depressed again? Is this one of your moods? My moods. That's what she called them. Within a week, I was in therapy. Her therapist. A woman named Dr. Wilkins who wore bright red lipstick on her teeth and kept calling me sweetie in that way that made you feel anything but safe. Raymond would drive me to my appointments alone and wait in the car, engine running. Every time I came out, he'd flash me that slow, steady smile. Not smug. Worse. Patient. Like he knew I was never going to be believed. That was when I realized I was in a house I'd never escape clean from. By winter, I stopped sleeping. I started keeping a hammer under my pillow not to use, but because the weight of it made me feel like I still had some control over my body. That I could swing if I had to. The final straw came on a Thursday night in January. He locked the door from the inside. Just clicked it shut like we were roommates or something. I didn't scream. I froze. He stood there for 10 seconds, just breathing, watching me. Then he said, "You think people will believe you over me?" That night, I left. Took a backpack, my birth certificate, 2 pairs of jeans, and an inhaler. No jacket. Just ran. I had no plan, no money, but I knew if I stayed, I wouldn't be writing this 10 years later. And my mom? She told everyone I was acting out. Claimed I ran off with a boy. That maybe I was pregnant. She even filed a missing persons report with a note in it saying not to bring me home if I was found. The kicker? They threw a block party 2 weeks later. Posted pictures of Raymond smiling at the grill like nothing ever happened. Like I never happened. That was the first time I thought, one day, they'll pay for this. Every last one of them. I spent the first night on a stranger's porch swing, under a wet fleece blanket I found in their garage. I was too afraid to sleep, too cold to think. I'd left my town, my house, my entire damn life behind, but I hadn't even made it to the edge of the county line. It took me 2 days to figure out how to survive. I called the one person I knew wouldn't call my mom, my friend Jessa. Her mom, Linda, was the kind of woman who wore Birkenstocks with toe rings and sold essential oils out of her kitchen. She also didn't trust cops or churches, which made her exactly the kind of ally I needed. She picked me up without asking questions, handed me a warm bagel, and said, "You can stay 2 nights. After that, we'll figure it out." Linda didn't have much, honestly. Her trailer had more cats than furniture, but she had a softness that made it feel like the first real home I'd ever been in. Jessa shared her bed with me that week. We slept head to foot like kids at a slumber party, except I cried into her pillow every night. By the 3rd day, my mom's version of events hit social media. A cryptic post, "Please pray for my daughter. She's lost and confused, but God can still reach her heart." Raymond commented with a heart emoji. A fucking heart emoji. They filed a police report claiming I was unstable and a danger to myself. My mom made sure to mention the history of emotional issues. She meant the anxiety I developed when I was 13 and Raymond first started coming around. They never told the cops about him being in my room. Never mentioned the lock. I wasn't technically a runaway. Ohio law lets you file for emancipation at 16 if you're working, which I was. I'd been bagging groceries since the summer. So Linda found me a legal aid attorney who helped me start the process. Took a few months, but I got it. I officially became my own guardian at 17. Raymond, of course, never saw a courtroom. And my mother? She started telling people I'd accused every man she dated of something, like I was some kind of serial accuser. A drama queen with daddy issues. I read it in a group chat screenshot Jessa sent me. My aunt called me a homewrecker. I bounced around after that. Finished high school and night classes while living in a shelter for youth in Cleveland. Took work wherever I could get it. Waitressing, tutoring, even cleaning houses. I started community college at 19 with a garbage laptop and a stolen textbook PDF I found online. Slept 4 hours a night, lived off gas station coffee and hope. There's a kind of invisibility that comes with being cut off like that. People think being disowned means shouting matches and slamming doors. Sometimes it just means birthdays with no calls. Medical emergencies alone in urgent care. Christmases where you scroll Instagram watching other people unwrap matching pajamas while you eat instant ramen on a floor mattress. But here's the thing. Solitude is a breeding ground for resilience. When nobody saves you, you learn how to sharpen your teeth. You start building something, even if it's small. Even if nobody claps. By 25, I'd graduated. Degree in psychology. By 27, I had my own office. Trauma counseling. No fancy title yet. No corner desk. But I had clients. I had purpose. I had nights where I actually slept. Still, I never went back to that town. Not even once. Not for reunions. Not when my cousin got married. Not when my old choir teacher died. I kept that place in a box in my mind labeled, "Do not open unless prepared for blood pressure spike." Then, on a random Tuesday, Jessa sent me a screenshot. Raymond James announces run for Eastbrook School Board. "We need protectors in our classrooms," says former officer. I swear to God, I thought it was a prank. I read it 5 times. It wasn't. There he was, smiling, bald head shining, arm around a second grader who had no idea who she was posing with. Talking about values. About safety. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, silent, and thought. All right then. If he wants a spotlight, I'll show them what he looks like under it. I didn't react right away. The night I saw the announcement, I made dinner like usual, chickpea pasta with too much garlic, and watched an episode of some crime show where the murderer always leaves a perfect trail of clues. I laughed when the detective figured it out halfway through. If only it were that easy in real life. But when the credits rolled, I sat in silence, bowl in hand, spoon idle. Raymond on the school board. Raymond around children. Raymond using words like protect. That's when it stopped being a ghost story and became a mission. I didn't want closure. I wanted consequence. So I did what anyone would do in 2023 when they need to burn a reputation down. I opened a blank Google Drive folder and titled it simply, Truth. No drama. No melodrama. Just cold, clean facts. That's what people ignore the least. First, I requested my old therapy records from Dr. Wilkins. Legally, in Ohio, mental health records belong to the patient after age 18 unless they're sealed by a court, which mine weren't. I paid $85 in processing fees and waited 5 days. When they arrived, I scrolled through pages of bright red lipstick notes and passive-aggressive commentary until I hit one golden line. Client reports stepfather entering room without consent. Describes feeling watched and unsafe. Recommends further evaluation trauma exposure. I almost threw up. I'd forgotten I'd said that. I'd forgotten how brave I had been, even back then. I printed it. Scanned it. Filed it under primary evidence. Next, I called Linda. She picked up on the second ring with a cheery, still not dead, baby. Her signature greeting. I asked if she remembered that week. When I'd shown up out of nowhere with a black hoodie and 2 pairs of socks, looking like a stray cat with trauma. Hell yeah, I remember, she said. You slept on my damn couch for 3 nights before you even looked anyone in the eye. I asked if she'd be willing to write something. Just a short note, dated and signed. She said, I'll write you a goddamn affidavit. Linda didn't just write a note. She typed 3 pages on pink stationery, because of course she did, detailing everything she remembered. She even included the date she first heard me whisper, "He watches me sleep." I cried when I read it. Then I scanned it too. Then came the hard part, contacting old neighbors. I reached out to Mrs. Bolin, who lived next door to us back then, the one with the wind chimes and the motion sensor porch lights. She was in her 70s now, on Facebook under the name Bolin for Christ 77. She remembered me immediately. You were the quiet one with the heavy backpack, she said. Always walking fast, like someone might follow. I asked if she ever noticed anything strange. Well, she said, I do recall seeing him out back sometimes, just standing. Not smoking, not gardening. Just watching your window. Made me uneasy. Uneasy. There it was again. She agreed to write a short statement. Nothing dramatic. Just a neighbor's observation. I added it to the growing folder. Then I contacted an attorney friend, a guy named Mike I'd met during a local advocacy seminar. I told him I wasn't looking to sue, just to make sure the truth came out. You don't need court for justice, he said. You just need people to believe what they're reading. So I started crafting the release plan. Step 1. Anonymous community post in a local Facebook group. No names, just a story. Just enough to stir the water. Step 2. Send the folder, redacted and clean, to the Eastbrook superintendent and school board. Step 3. Send everything, unredacted, to a local journalist who'd once tweeted about corruption inside the police department. I'd kept the screenshot. I always keep screenshots. By the end of the week, I had a 30-page PDF. Timestamps. Notes. Screenshots. And the truth, finally arranged in a way that couldn't be ignored. I didn't sign my name. I didn't need to, because the fire was coming. And Raymond? He lit the match himself when he stepped into the public eye. It started with a Facebook post. Just words on a screen, but written carefully, surgical, not emotional. I posted it anonymously to a group called Eastbrook Parents for Progress, a digital town square where local moms argued about school lunches and traffic flow. I titled it, "Would you want your daughter around this man?" No names. No accusations. Just the story of a young girl whose stepfather used his authority and her mother's silence to make her life a waking nightmare. I attached a redacted screenshot of my old therapy note. No identifiers. Just the line about the stepfather entering her room. The part that said, "Client reports feeling watched and unsafe." That was all it took. Within an hour, the post had 23 comments. By the end of the day, it had 118. By then, I'd already submitted the full file to the Eastbrook School Board with a typed letter that read, "Attached is documentation concerning Raymond James, a current candidate for school board." While no criminal charges were ever filed, the enclosed materials raise significant concerns regarding his proximity to children. I urge the board to consider the full scope of this information. I didn't sign it. I created a burner Gmail under eastbrookguardian@protonmail.com. The IP was routed through a VPN in Quebec. If Raymond ever saw the email, he didn't show it. He kept smiling. That weekend, he hosted a pancake breakfast fundraiser at the VFW. Local paper ran a piece titled, "From Badge to Blackboard, a Lifetime of Service." My mother was in the photo, standing beside him in a blue cardigan, her hand on his chest like he was some hometown saint. I stared at that photo for 10 straight minutes. She looked proud. Radiant. Like she'd won. But the comments on the school board's Facebook page were shifting. Subtle, at first. Anyone else getting bad vibes about this guy? Something's off. Can't put my finger on it. I think we should listen when survivors speak up, even if it's uncomfortable. Then, on a quiet Tuesday, the Eastbrook Gazette broke the story. Local school board candidate faces anonymous allegations of past abuse. It wasn't front page, it was page 5, next to a blurb about a bake sale, but it was enough. The article didn't name me, but it didn't need to. They had a quote from the neighbor. From Linda. From a source with direct knowledge of therapy sessions detailing ongoing boundary violations. Raymond responded with a Facebook post that was a mix of denial and sanctimony. We live in dangerous times when anonymous accusations can ruin lives. I have always been a protector of this community. God knows the truth. Classic move. Hide behind God and the badge. What he didn't realize was that the court of public opinion has a long memory and a short temper, especially when it comes to children. Within 48 hours, 3 women from town shared comments like, "He made me uncomfortable as a teen too. My daughter said he watched her at the pool and it creeped her out. He used to show up at my job at the pharmacy and talk for too long." Raymond tried to fight back. He released a video from his living room, sitting on a leather armchair like he was Franklin Graham. My mother sat beside him, holding a Bible. She didn't speak, but she cried on cue. Big, wet tears. I almost applauded. Someone give her a daytime Emmy. They made it about cancel culture, about false memory, and even dragged in his former precinct supervisor to vouch for him. But it didn't matter. Because once the whisper starts, it becomes a rumor. And once it becomes a rumor, it becomes doubt. And no one wants doubt sitting next to their daughter at career day. By Friday, the school board issued a statement. In light of emerging concerns and in the interest of student safety, Raymond James has voluntarily withdrawn his candidacy. Voluntarily. Right. The post got shared 2,300 times. The fire was lit. His name was scorched. My mother went silent. No follow-up post. No inspirational quote. No birthday cake selfies. And me? I slept that night. Deeply. For the first time in 10 years, I didn't dream about locks clicking shut. Because Raymond had spent a decade building his image. I spent 1 week tearing it down. You'd think a man like Raymond, ex-cop, press the crease on your pants kind of guy, would go down swinging. He didn't. He went down quiet. After he voluntarily withdrew from the school board race, he posted once more. Something cryptic and smug, like he was above it all. My faith is stronger than gossip. I'll keep serving my community in the ways that matter. God sees beyond rumor. He attached a photo of himself at a food bank, handing a can of soup to someone who clearly didn't want to be in the photo. His smile was strained, his eyes tired. He looked smaller, like someone had let the air out of him. But the real shift wasn't public. It was behind the scenes, in the way people started reacting when they saw him. I know because Jessa still lives there. She started sending me updates like she was covering a political scandal. Guess who just got uninvited from the Rotary banquet? Mom's friend Marlene said her kid's school told Raymond he couldn't volunteer anymore. Liability, they said. Oh, girl, the pastor gently suggested he not lead youth group anymore. Gently, my ass. Raymond had been everywhere in that town for years, handing out flyers at parades, reading scripture at baptisms, shaking hands at diners. And now? Ghosted. Not criminally convicted, not publicly exiled. Just excluded. The kind of exile that doesn't make headlines, but eats at a man like him from the inside out. But the real fracture? That came at home. My mother didn't post a thing for days. For someone who once uploaded a selfie with a Pinterest quote every Tuesday, a daughter is just a little girl who grows up to be your best friend. Her silence was deafening. Then, finally, she broke it. People believe what they want. Loyalty means nothing anymore. Families used to protect each other. No names. But everyone knew. Her friends started commenting. Praying for you, dear. God knows the truth. That's what matters. Don't let bitterness win. But then a few others, ones she hadn't tagged, started showing up with their own heat. You know, I always wondered why Erica never came home. If even half of it's true, maybe you owe some people an apology. Hard to see your husband as a role model after this. That's when she started deleting comments, then turning off comments, then deleting the post altogether. She wasn't just grieving her husband's fall. She was grieving her audience. My mom built her social currency on performative perfection. Sunday brunches, church volunteer days, garden club recipes. Raymond was her crown jewel. The reformed cop. The God-fearing husband. The man who stepped up when my biological dad walked out. Now, she couldn't look anyone in the eye without wondering if they'd seen the story. The neighbors. Her friends from church. The hairdresser she overshared with. The whole illusion? Gone. Jessa texted me a photo one night. My mom at Kroger alone. No makeup. Hair flat. Just gray. Not literally, but something in her posture. That woman who used to float into church like the First Lady of Eastbrook was now checking expiration dates on yogurt and pretending not to see people she used to gossip with. I looked at that photo for a long time. It didn't feel triumphant. It felt like closure. Because I didn't need to see Raymond behind bars. I didn't need my mom to cry on national TV or beg forgiveness. All I needed was for the world to stop pretending they were better than what they were. They always said I was the liar. Now the silence says otherwise. 2 weeks after the fallout, my boss forwarded me an email from Child Services. They were asking for a trauma counselor, female preferred, for a 13-year-old girl named Emma. Recently removed from a family situation that no one would describe in detail, but everyone danced around with phrases like difficult circumstances and emotional volatility. I said yes before I finished reading. Emma came in wearing a hoodie 3 sizes too big and a look that said she'd rather be anywhere else, including hell. She didn't speak for the first 4 sessions. Not one word. Just stared at the corner of my desk like it owed her money. When I asked if she wanted water, she nodded. When I asked if she wanted to leave, she didn't move. That was our language, stillness and refusal. She reminded me of myself, angry and quiet in all the ways that keep people from looking closer. Not broken, but pressurized. A girl who learned early that expressing pain just gave people more to use against you. She finally spoke in week 5. She pointed at the window in my office and said, "Is that lock broken?" I shook my head. "It works. I just don't usually close it." "Good," she said. "I don't sit near windows that don't lock." It hit me like a punch in the chest. That's the kind of sentence number 13-year-old says unless they've had to. I didn't ask for more. Didn't push. I just nodded and moved my chair. From then on, she sat with her back to the wall, eyes facing the door. Every inch of her screamed survival. Week 10, she asked if I liked living alone. "I like not needing permission," I said. She nodded slowly, like I'd spoken something sacred. Like not needing permission was a kind of dream no one had ever told her was possible. By spring, she was opening up in little bursts. Stories about foster homes. One where she wasn't allowed to eat after 6 p.m. Another where she shared a room with 3 other girls and had to hang a sheet for privacy. She didn't cry when she told them. Just said them flat, like they were facts in a textbook. She asked one day if I believed people like us ever got to feel safe. "I don't know about people," I said, "but I believe you will." That night, I sat in my apartment and stared at the empty second bedroom. I'd always told myself I didn't want kids, didn't want to risk becoming my mother or letting someone like Raymond get close again. But Emma wasn't a child in the typical sense. She was already forged, hardened, and somehow she still had light left. I filed the paperwork 3 weeks later. Foster to adopt. No Instagram announcement. No balloons. No matching outfits. Just paperwork, interviews, and a caseworker who looked at me like I was trying to lift a boulder uphill alone. Emma moved in on a Saturday. She didn't bring much, just a duffel bag, a few books, and a folder of school documents. I gave her the bedroom. Let her paint the walls any color she wanted. She chose navy blue. Said it felt like a sky that doesn't judge. The first night, she didn't say goodnight. Just closed her door and locked it. And I let her. Because that's what I would have wanted, too. It wasn't a phone call at first. It was a voicemail. One of those you stare at on your screen like it's something alive, pulsing under glass. I hadn't spoken to my mother in 10 years, and yet there she was, her name still in my phone like a relic I never got around to deleting. Missed call, Mom. Voicemail, 1 minute, 14 seconds. I didn't play it right away. I watched it. Like a bomb. Like it might explode if I tapped it wrong. I poured a glass of wine, sat on my balcony, and let the cold night air press into my skin until I stopped shaking. Then I hit play. Her voice, God, that voice. Soft, sweet, weaponized. Like honey over a blade. "Erica, it's your mother." I wasn't sure if this number still worked, but I just needed to hear your voice. "I'm not calling to fight, sweetheart. I'm calling because everything's different now. Everything's changed." She didn't mention Raymond. Not once. She didn't say the word sorry. What she did say was that she missed me terribly and that she was ready to move forward. "I've seen the way people talk about you now," she said. "How they admire you. The work you do. You've really made something of yourself." And there it was. That tone. The subtle shift from regret to rebranding. She wasn't reaching out because she was sorry. She was reaching out because I was now someone it made sense to be seen with. The voicemail ended with a long pause. And then, "Call me, okay? Just call. Please." I didn't. But Emma heard it. She walked in right as it finished. She stood in the doorway, holding a chipped mug that said "Not today," Satan, which she'd claimed as her own the minute she moved in. She didn't ask what the message was. She just said, "You gonna answer that?" "No," I replied. Good, she said, and went back to the kitchen like it was just another Tuesday. I should have deleted it, but instead I transcribed it, word for word, printed it out, filed it in the same folder as my adoption papers. Not because I wanted to keep it, but because I needed the reminder. Abusers don't always show up in the form of fists or threats. Sometimes they come bearing memories, dipped in sugar, pretending to be invitations. A week later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. Return address, Eastbrook. My mother's handwriting round, neat, almost childlike. Inside was a card with sunflowers on the front. Inside, just 4 words. I'm still your mother. I read it once, then fed it to the garbage disposal. Watched the blades turn it to pulp. When I came out of the kitchen, Emma looked up from her homework. You good? She asked. I nodded. And for the first time in years, I realized the truth. I didn't need my mother to recognize me. I just needed to recognize myself. The turkey came out dry. Like sandpaper dry. I could have sued the bird for defamation and won. But Emma took a bite, nodded solemnly, and said, could be worse. At least it's dead. And that was how our first Thanksgiving together began, with a cremated turkey and a teenager too stubborn to let it ruin the moment. We were in my apartment. 2-bedroom, rent-controlled miracle in a building with no working intercom and an elevator that moaned like a haunted house ride. I'd strung up those fake fall leaves across the kitchen entryway, the kind you buy for $3.99 at Target and feel weirdly proud of. Emma had made mashed potatoes, our real ones, not the powdered stuff. She'd peeled them with the knife I told her not to use and nearly sliced her thumb open, but she didn't bleed on anything, so that counted as success. There was stuffing from a box, cranberry sauce still shaped like the can, and a pie we didn't make, just bought and warmed like we had. I'd set the table with mismatched plates and real napkins, cloth ones, because this was a real Thanksgiving now. And for the first time in my life, no one at that table made me feel small. We didn't say grace. We said boundaries. We didn't go around saying what we were thankful for in some Instagrammable moment of forced gratitude. We just sat, chewed, and let the quiet feel like peace instead of tension. It was enough. After dinner, Emma and I curled up on the couch with a movie, some 90s comedy she'd never seen, something stupid and slapstick. She laughed with her whole face. I didn't even realize I'd started crying until she nudged me with her elbow. Don't get all mushy, she said, wiping her fingers on her hoodie. We still have to burn the rolls tomorrow. Tradition. Outside, fireworks went off. Not for us. Someone down the street probably celebrating with illegal sparklers and bad decisions. But inside, it was warm. Safe. The doors were locked. Not out of fear. Out of choice. That night, I pulled an old photo out of my closet. One I'd never had the courage to throw away. It was me at 16, standing on our porch. Raymond's arm was around my shoulder. My mother was smiling. I wasn't. I took a lighter from the junk drawer, the one I kept for birthday candles and forgotten trauma. I watched that picture curl inward, blacken, shrink. When it was nothing but ash in the sink, I took Emma's photo, the one I snapped of her at the fall festival last month, in front of the cornstalks, flipping off the camera with both hands, and I framed it. Put it on the mantle. My family now. Chosen. Unapologetic. We don't do secrets here. Just burnt turkey and brutal honesty. And locks on both doors, one to keep us safe, the other to keep them out. The first email came on a Tuesday morning, tucked between spam and a PDA fundraiser invite I definitely never signed up for. Subject line, I think he did it to me too. No name. Just a burner Gmail and a few short lines. I grew up in Eastbrook. I remember Raymond. I was 12 when he gave me a ride home from Sunday school. He put his hand on my knee and told me not to tell anyone. I thought I imagined it for years. Until I read your story. Thank you for telling it. I don't need anything. I just needed to say it out loud for once. I stared at it for 10 minutes. Not because I didn't believe her, God, I believed her, but because I'd never thought of my story as something other people would recognize in themselves. I thought it was mine. Singular. Ugly and private. But then the next email came. And another. And another. A woman from 3 streets over who remembered Raymond, helping her clean up after a youth lock-in, even though she hadn't asked for help. A man, now 40, who said his little sister quit choir abruptly at 13 and never said why. A high school teacher, now retired, who remembered an offhand comment from a student he regrets not taking seriously. None of them wanted headlines. None wanted lawsuits or courtrooms. They just wanted to be seen. And they'd waited years for someone else to go first. I created an anonymous intake form and posted it to the same community group that started it all. If you have a story and need someone to hold it, I will. That's all it said. No names, no details, just an invitation. Over 70 people filled it out. Some were about Raymond. Some weren't. Some were about coaches, uncles, cousins, pastors. Some were women in their 50s talking about things they never told their own children. I couldn't fix it all. I couldn't undo what had been done to them. But I could listen. So I created a private newsletter, unsearchable, invite only. Every Friday, I sent out a short letter. Just thoughts. Reflections. Sometimes a quote. Sometimes just a reminder. You are not crazy. You are not wrong. You are not alone. Emma asked what I was doing one night as I typed. Writing to people who don't know they matter, I said. She nodded. Cool. That weekend, I caught her in her room with a stack of index cards, scribbling something furiously. What are those? I asked. Stuff I want to say, she said. Just not ready to say it out loud. She started leaving them around the apartment. Taped to the fridge, tucked into my coat pocket, left on the bathroom mirror. I'm still scared, but I don't feel stupid about it anymore. I hated everyone for a while. Not anymore. You make me feel like I'm not broken. Just bruised. Her words, not mine. But damn if they didn't feel familiar. Her name isn't mine. But her story is. Not in the specifics, in the shape. The weight. The fight to reclaim your body, your voice, your narrative. She's writing her own chapters now. And I'm just here, cheering her on. The first time I was ever invited to speak publicly about what happened, I almost said no. It was a women's leadership panel at a local college, trauma counselors, social workers, survivors turned advocates. They asked if I'd be willing to share my journey. Funny how that word has become the polite way to say, the years you spent bleeding quietly. Emma was the one who said I should do it. You talk to strangers about trauma every day, she said, flipping through her science notes. Might as well get a microphone. I told her I didn't want to be that person. The one who's known for their pain. She shrugged. I think you're known for what you did about it. So I said yes. It was held in a library conference room that smelled like old pages and institutional soap. There were folding chairs, stale coffee, and a mic that gave off a high-pitched whine until someone smacked the side of the soundboard. I wore all black, not because I was grieving, but because I wanted to look sharp. Strong. Unflinching. When they introduced me, they said, Erica Monroe, licensed trauma counselor, survivor, and founder of the Safe Words Project. Safe Words. That was the name Emma picked for our little newsletter. Said it sounded like something people could carry in their pocket. I stood behind the podium and looked out at the crowd. Students. Faculty. A few faces I didn't recognize, but somehow felt familiar. One woman in the second row had the same deadpan stare I used to wear like armor. I saw myself in her. Or maybe the me I never let people see. I didn't tell them the whole story. I told them the real story. About what it feels like when the person who hurts you also holds your future in their hand. About what it costs to speak when you know your voice is a threat to someone else's comfort. About how long it takes to stop flinching every time someone says your name with a little too much familiarity. But mostly, I talked about rebuilding. Not with forgiveness. Not with kumbaya crap or everything happens for a reason, bumper sticker optimism. With boundaries. With chosen family. With locks on both doors and the right to decide who gets a key. When it was over, people clapped. Some stood. I hated that part, honestly. But I smiled. I took questions. I even gave out my card. Afterward, a girl maybe 19, eyes rimmed in the kind of eyeliner that says "Don't F with me," she came up to me. Didn't say anything, just handed me a folded note and walked off. It read, "You said what I haven't been able to yet. Thank you for going first." I still have that note. It sits in my desk, right next to the court papers I never needed and the voicemail from my mother I'll never delete. Because winning wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about witnessing. And making damn sure no one like Raymond ever felt protected by silence again. That night, Emma and I ordered pizza, put our phones on silent, and sat at the table. Just the two of us. Mismatched plates. Paper napkins. She tossed a slice onto my plate and said, "You know, this would be way cooler if we had a chandelier." I laughed. "Maybe next year." She reached over and grabbed my hand. "You're a good mom," she said. Like, annoyingly good. And just like that, I finally had it. The seat at the table. The one I built. Nailed together with the truth, the pain, and the kind of rage that fuels healing instead of destruction. No one had to invite me to it. I pulled it up myself. And I'm not giving it back.